Keanu Reeves, a name that echoes far beyond Hollywood. To millions, he is not just an actor, but a symbol of humility, kindness, and strength. Yet, behind his quiet smile and gentle presence lies a man who has made choices that very few in the world would ever dare to make. One such decision left fans stunned and Hollywood insiders speechless. At the height of his career, Keanu Reeves walked away from a deal worth $80 million, a sum so enormous that most of us couldn't even imagine turning it down. But Keanu did, and the reason why will shake you to your core. Money, after all, is supposed to be the ultimate prize. In Hollywood, fortunes are measured in box office numbers, contracts, and endorsements. Stars climb ladders, sacrifice friendships, and sometimes even betray their own values just to secure a fraction of what Keanu was offered. Yet here he stood, presented with a contract that could have changed his financial future forever. And he simply said no. To the world, it made no sense. To Keanu, however, the answer was clear. This wasn't about recklessness. It wasn't about arrogance. It was about something far deeper. Something that has guided Keanu Reeves through a life filled with tragedy, resilience, and redemption. This decision wasn't just about turning down money. It was about standing up for what mattered most to him as a human being. While the industry called it career suicide, Keanu knew it was something far more powerful, a stand for his principles. But to truly understand the weight of this decision, we need to go back to the circumstances that led him to this moment. Back to the very heart of who Keanu Reeves is. Because this is not a story about money lost, it's a story about values, integrity, and the courage to walk away when the price is too high. Hollywood was buzzing. The late 1990s and early 2000s were a golden era for blockbuster films, and studios were willing to spend staggering sums to secure bankable stars. Keanu Reeves was one of those rare names that guaranteed success. After the thunderous triumph of The Matrix, his face became more than just recognizable, it became a global phenomenon. Audiences couldn't get enough of Neo, the chosen one who bent the rules of reality. Studios saw dollar signs, and executives began scrambling to tie Keanu down with contracts that promised fortunes beyond comprehension. One of those contracts came with a jaw-dropping figure, $80 million. The offer was tied to a major continuation project, a surefire commercial hit that would not only cement Keanu's star power, but also flood his bank accounts with wealth most actors only dream about. For Hollywood insiders, it was the kind of deal you don't even think twice about. To them, signing was automatic, an obvious move. To walk away from it, that would be insanity. But Keanu Reeves, as the world would soon discover, was not like everyone else. For Keanu, the question was never, how much money will I make? Instead, it was, what does this role mean? Who am I working with? What story are we telling? While agents, lawyers, and producers pushed him to accept, Keanu stood in quiet reflection. He weighed not the dollar amount, but the cost to his integrity. Could he give his heart to something he didn't believe in? Could he accept wealth if it came at the expense of his principles? The truth is, Keanu Reeves had already tasted wealth, fame, and recognition. He knew firsthand how fleeting they could be. He also knew how empty life could feel when you trade your soul for success. The world saw $80 million. Keanu saw a choice between taking the easy road and staying true to himself. And while most would have grabbed the money without hesitation, Keanu did something extraordinary. He paused. He thought. He questioned. And in the end, he chose to walk away. That choice didn't just shock Hollywood, it rattled the very foundation of how we view success. Because in a world obsessed with more, Keanu Reeves proved that sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. To truly grasp why Keanu Reeves turned down a fortune, you have to understand the man behind the fame. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Keanu's life was not cushioned by luxury or privilege. He grew up facing hardship, with a fractured family and constant movement from one place to another. His father left when he was young, and his mother struggled to provide stability. From an early age, Keanu learned that money could never replace love, kindness, or loyalty. That lesson would become the compass guiding his entire career. Despite achieving fame, Keanu never allowed himself to be blinded by it. He lived modestly, often riding the subway instead of hiring private drivers. He was seen sitting on park benches, lost in thought like any ordinary man. He gave away millions to crew members on his films, quietly paying bonuses to the people who worked behind the scenes. For Keanu, money was a tool, not a trophy. And that is why, when he faced the $80 million offer, he did not see treasure. He saw temptation, a test of his principles. You see, Keanu's philosophy has always been rooted in authenticity. He once remarked that he could live on far less than what Hollywood stars typically demanded. He didn't care about yachts or designer mansions. He cared about people, the ones who struggled, the ones who worked hard without recognition, the ones who reminded him of where he came from. His values placed loyalty above luxury and integrity above income. Accepting the $80 million deal would have contradicted the very essence of who he was. And so, in that defining moment, Keanu proved that values are worth more than gold. Hollywood may not have understood it at the time, but Keanu wasn't just making a career decision. He was sending a message that said, your worth is not defined by your paycheck. It's defined by your choices, your integrity, and the impact you leave on others. It is this philosophy, this unwavering dedication to his beliefs, that transformed Keanu Reeves from a movie star into a legend. And the world was about to learn just how deep his convictions ran when he walked away from wealth most people could only dream of. When Keanu Reeves decided to turn his back on the $80 million deal, the ripple effect was immediate. Agents whispered in hushed tones, studio executives shook their heads in disbelief, and fellow actors couldn't believe what they were hearing. To Hollywood insiders, it wasn't just a refusal, it was madness. After all, this was an industry where stars fought tooth and nail for million-dollar paychecks, where careers could be destroyed overnight by saying the wrong word to the wrong person. By rejecting the deal, Keanu wasn't just losing money, he was gambling with his future. The deal would have guaranteed him not only wealth but also influence. With that kind of money, doors open wider in Hollywood, projects get greenlit faster, producers bend their knees, and stars are granted almost godlike power. By saying no, Keanu risked being branded difficult or unpredictable, a label that could easily exile an actor from the inner circle of A-listers. For a man who had just tasted global superstardom with The Matrix, the choice to walk away could have meant slipping into obscurity. And yet, Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain himself to those who couldn't understand. He simply walked away, silent and steadfast, as if the decision was the most natural thing in the world. To him, the sacrifice wasn't a burden, it was freedom. He had no interest in being owned by contracts, pressured into roles that didn't align with his beliefs, or tied to people who saw him as a product rather than a person. Still, the sacrifice was very real. He gave up not only money, but also security, the kind of financial safety net that could have ensured comfort for the rest of his life. He gave up prestige, the chance to join the ranks of the richest actors in history. And perhaps most importantly, he gave up approval. In a world where validation is currency, Keanu Reeves chose isolation over conformity. But while Hollywood gasped, something remarkable happened. The public began to see him in a new light. He wasn't just a star, he was a man of principle. And sometimes, the greatest sacrifices are the ones that show the world who you truly are. For Keanu Reeves, the $80 million deal was never about the money. It was about meaning. Deep down, he understood something that many in Hollywood refused to acknowledge. Wealth could never heal the wounds of the past, nor could it by the peace of mind he had fought so hard to protect. Keanu had endured tragedies that most people could barely imagine. Losing loved ones, watching his own dreams shatter in silence, and living through grief that no paycheck could ever erase. Those experiences carved into him a truth. Life is fragile, and money is powerless against loss. This was why he chose differently. The project tied to the deal lacked authenticity. It didn't inspire him, didn't align with his principles, and didn't carry the kind of heart he sought in his work. To Keanu, acting was never just about fame or fortune. It was about storytelling, about creating art that resonated with people. If a project didn't have soul, then no sum of money could justify the time it demanded. The decision to walk away wasn't just about rejecting a role, it was about protecting his spirit from something that felt hollow. More than that, Keanu had always believed in sharing success rather than hoarding it. He gave away massive portions of his earnings to film crews, special effects teams, and people who rarely stood in the spotlight. He knew that he already had enough to live, enough to give, enough to remain comfortable. The $80 million wasn't just unnecessary, it was excess. And in his heart, excess without purpose felt like chains. By saying no, he was breaking free. There was also something deeply personal about his refusal. Keanu valued loyalty, and part of his hesitation came from not wanting to abandon the people he trusted, the projects he believed in, or the creative partnerships that mattered to him. Hollywood might have promised him a fortune, but it couldn't promise him fulfillment. And Keanu Reeves, a man who had already lost so much in life, knew that fulfillment was priceless. In the end, his choice revealed something extraordinary. For Keanu, happiness was never measured in numbers. It was measured in integrity, in love, in kindness, and in the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had stayed true to himself. That was the real reason he walked away, and it's what turned a shocking decision into an inspiring legacy. When news broke that Keanu Reeves had walked away from an $80 million deal, the industry was stunned. Executives whispered about missed opportunities, tabloids questioned his sanity, and financial analysts tried to calculate the staggering wealth he had given up. But outside the walls of Hollywood, something far greater was happening. Fans around the world looked at him with newfound respect. Ordinary people, workers, students, parents, saw in Keanu a rare kind of courage. The courage to say no when the world pressures you to say yes. In a culture obsessed with wealth and status, his decision became a quiet rebellion. Here was a man at the very top of his game, who could have had more money than entire generations of families combined, and yet he turned it down without regret. It challenged people to reflect on their own lives. How often do we sacrifice our values for a paycheck? How often do we say yes to things that don't align with our heart, simply because we fear losing security? Keanu Reeves reminded the world that true power lies not in what you gain, but in what you are willing to give up. The impact of that moment rippled far beyond the film industry. Keanu became a symbol of integrity, a man who valued authenticity over applause, meaning over money, and humanity over profit. His act of walking away wasn't seen as weakness but as strength. It showed that success isn't about how much you have, but how much of yourself you refuse to lose along the way. And perhaps that is why Keanu Reeves continues to inspire millions across the globe. Not because he is invincible, not because he is flawless, but because he is human, deeply human, in a world that often forgets what that means. His choice to walk away from $80 million wasn't just about rejecting a deal. It was about reminding us all that integrity is priceless, kindness is wealth, and the greatest victories are not won in bank accounts, but in the choices we make when no one expects us to. In the end, Keanu Reeves didn't lose $80 million. He gained something far more powerful: our respect, our admiration, and a place in history as the man who proved that even in Hollywood, your soul is worth more than any deal.